welcome back to another New World video. We'll put in the Amazon Lord of the Rings videos to the side for a minute, although I do hope to be covering that game obviously when it comes out in a couple of years. But yeah, into this now. We're going to do like a mini guide video. It's basically how to light tank Genesis M10s, or any mutation really, obviously if you're starting off at M1s and stuff like that. But essentially, I'll be honest, I've not now heavy tank Genesis for maybe month for me now, maybe like 9 months, maybe 10 months. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, I've not like no, let's go with 9 months just in case. Yeah, I've not heavy tanked it, but I still see loads of heavy tanks in group finders. And listen, that's fine if you're brand new to tanking and stuff like that. Hey, look, you're gonna go in heavy, you're probably gonna go and farm the Harbinger set and stuff like that, but it's not efficient enough anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like Genesis, I've said this a million times on my stream. I'll leave the link down below if you want to check me out live when we're playing New World. But Genesis is without a shadow of a doubt the easiest dungeon and mutation, or the mutation can change, but easiest dungeon in the entire of New World. The mobs attack so slowly, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like the soldiers and the brutes and the archers, they attack so slowly. So I'm going to basically show you my light tanking build. Quick disclaimer, there are a couple of other builds out there, of course there are. I don't see many guides for them though. I've had a quick look on YouTube before and I couldn't actually find anyone guides. There are a couple of speed runs out there and stuff like that, and you might see people running, for example, Hatchet Warhammer or maybe Great Sword Warhammer. I personally still run Sword and Shield Warhammer, and completely light, and we'll go through the build in a minute and exactly how we do it, and even incredibly low con as well, considering we're tanking. I run around about 66 con. I'll be honest, with a really good healer, I think I could probably run 50 con. I probably wouldn't go too much lower than 50 con because you can get one tap by any of the brutes if you run out of stamina and stuff like that, which we'll go through. So yeah, basically this is my light tanking of Genesis mutations all the way up to M10 guide, and we got some decent results as well this week on the leaderboard. I think we finished maybe in the top 5, so we did pretty good. We could have done better, but whatever. I'll show you the guide. Let's get into it. Any comment section down below, fill it in if you do like this build, don't like this build, any tweaks or whatever that you would do. And if you want to try this build out, maybe practice it over the next couple of weeks, and then the next rotation of Genesis mutations, try it out, and then comment section down below, or come into my Twitch chat and let me know if this video helped you. Okay, so gear set storage system here, just in case you've returned a player or you're somebody who's not played for a while and you've not seen this. So obviously we can just equip our gear here. Now let me eat some food, because then I'm going to show you what kind of attribute split we're going to be rocking. So what I would say to do, oh, we're almost saved in there, kind of. What I would say to do, if you're brand new to trying this light build out, by the way, I would probably start with something like this. Let's bang this all the way up. Can we get that to 166? Nah, probably go 150 maybe. Yeah, so basically I don't play at 100 con, but I just want to show you roughly what your attribute split should look like if you're going to be trying this for the first time in light. Maybe mess around in like a couple of normal Genesis runs, and then obviously build into your mutations. Obviously if you're going to go group finder and you start joining groups and just instantly dying, some people get a little bit wound up, don't they? So just something to think about. But what I actually rock is down to 66 con, and then I go to 250 strength, and then I'm trying to maximize my DPS as much as possible. So we go to 200 dexterity. I found that this has been one of the better combinations. I know the bonus here is 10% bonus to backstab and headshot damage, so let's just say backstab. As a tank, you're always forward facing. On odd occasions, in big groups of clumps of mobs as well, you will be hitting some mobs in the back here and there, especially the big Mage clump, which we'll show you in the video. And this is like a damage sort of attribute split that I found that is really, really good for the Sword and Shield. We don't really care about the DPS from the Warhammer, especially since the Season 1 nerfs were CC skills now no longer do that much damage, but obviously the CC, which is fine. So basically, this is what you want to aim for. You want to aim for 250 strength, 200 dex, and 66 con. If we go into the weapon mastery, I'll show you how I play Sword and Shield. Straight away, anybody looking at this brand new might be like, well, Liam, you don't take reverse stab. Now, the biggest reason why I don't take reverse stab is on my sword. Again, even though slightly nerfed, we have refresh and move. Okay, so we'll go back to that in a minute. But basically, on refresh and move, I tend to find, you'll get there eventually as well, I tend to find I don't need reverse stab, and I'd much rather take the leap and strike and then add to my DPS as well. Obviously, every time you hit the mobs and stuff, you'll be getting this. So these are the 3 skills I take. I take Leap and Strike, I take Shield Rush, which is an absolute must, even with the Fortify nerf, with the weapon perk, which we'll speak about. And then obviously Defender's Resolve, an absolute must as well. That's how you're going to taunt all your mobs. Going through the rest of these, I'll show you now. Successful heavy attacks grant 30% empower. This is huge. You're always going to start your rotation of attacks with this to give you even more DPS. And don't forget, the more damage you do, the more threat you cause. So that helps you keep the aggro. The final attack in your light attack chain inflicts a 20% slow. So just remember that in a minute. Sword and shield critical strike chance increased by 10%. Of course, we want that. More damage. Successfully hitting with a heavy attack causes you to lose 1 debuff. So going on with this one earlier on, that's exactly why we will be using a heavy attack in rotation, and then debuffing every now and again is always useful. When you block an attack, gain a stack of 3% empower. Picture the soldier mobs, for example. They do like a spinny whirl attack, whatever you want to call that, and they tend to hit you like 3, 4, 5 times. You can actually gain the max amount of stacks here of empower, which means you do more damage. I presume you already know that by now, by just literally blocking that small moment. Then you go into a heavy attack, you stock up all your empower, and then you obviously off you go and you start doing as much damage as you can. Now in general with this build, you're not going to be blocking all the time because you're only going to have a round shield, which doesn't have too much stamina, but in general there's moments when you can block to then build up your DPS. Now here we go, like we mentioned the one earlier on, when you attack the mobs and then you hit the third light chain attack on the sword and shield, you're going to do 10% more damage to slowed foes. So you're going to be slowing them, and then that's how you do a lot more damage in there when you stack that up. While health is full, deal 15% more damage. I always find this one more attractive to take than on critical gain haste. I mean, if you're speed running, you probably might go for this, but maybe if you want to shave a couple of seconds. And then move 33% faster while blocking. Don't care about that's pretty much garbage. And every now and again, you will be full health or with a really good timed healer and really good dodges from yourself. You will be doing the 15% more damage there. And then this is the big one. Now, this is why I tend to take, or why I tend to play sword and shield over, for example, hatchet main hand or greatsword main hand. Now, there's nothing wrong with hatchet main hand. There's nothing wrong with greatsword main hand. You'll see plenty of good builds out there and good players who play them. I don't tend to like that style. I love the sword and shield, so this is why I play it. So this is not me saying that this is better. In my opinion, I prefer to play this, and this is one of the big buffs. It gives all the other members on your team an additional 10% damage. So if everybody else on your team is absolutely min-max to the skies, you're topping them up with 10% as well. You know what I mean? So I believe this is pretty good. Leap and strike. Obviously, this is a good maneuverable skill. You'll pop around the map here and there. There's maybe that one little mob that you've not hit yet, and it's latched onto the healer. You can leap and strike over there and get him. And then just in general, when you're opening up attacks to like the mini bosses and stuff, you can always go with this. If you hit a foe below 30% health, deal 50% more damage. Again, good for boss fights, like the Garden Keeper and stuff like that. When you're on that final little wave, hit him with a leap and strike, and you'll get some more damage there. And then on successful hit, inflict a 30% slow, going back to the other perk earlier on. When the mobs are slowed, you deal more damage, so that's why we picked that. Now over here, obviously shield rush. This is obvious. You're going to have shield rush. It gives you a little bit of grit whilst you're actually attacking. And then you want this one. This is pretty vital here. On a successful hit, all enemies within 5 meters are inflicted by 20% weaken for 10 seconds. And like it says, weaken reduces the target outgoing damage. Now you're 66 con, you're light, you can be tapped a lot. So on the big mobs like the soldiers, maybe the archers, and then the big mini bosses or the bosses in general, tapping them with improved rush is really, really important. It makes them do less damage to you, more likely that you're going to survive, especially while you're practicing. Over to the other big skill, this is another obvious one. All tanks should know this by now. Defender's Resolve. Hopefully I don't have to explain this too much, but you slot your Carnelian gem on your sword, and when you pop this, it gives you the aggro for all the mobs in the area. And then obviously popping down here, if your health is above 50%, damage reduction is increased by 20%. So this is one of those sort of skills that you probably go in with a leap and strike, grab the aggro of that mob, and then maybe hit them with a shield rush. I would probably say is the second skill to use, because I also can give you some fortify, which we'll mention in a minute. Weaken them if they do instantly hit you back. And then kind of a couple of seconds into the fight, or if there's a big group of mobs all being pulled in, at that moment you'll pop your Defender's Resolve to make sure you aggro all the surrounding mobs as well. And then obviously you take less damage. Try and pop it if you can, above 50% health. The other little perks in here, obviously this is obvious. Grants additional 15% physical armor. Again, you're going to be all light across the board, so you're going to need this. Reduce damage from all magical types. Again, it's a no-brainer. We're in mutations. A lot of the damage is all elemental damage, magical damage, a lot of that out there. So this really, really helps. This is a big one for me as well. The third attack in your light attack chain, which we'll always be doing with the sword and shield, does 15% more damage, which is good. and it adds more threat. It's going to keep hold of that aggro as much as you can. So to me, that's a no-brainer. And then the other one that I like to slot here as well, again, you're light, you're getting tapped quite a lot. All incoming healing and regeneration is increased by 10%. I think that's a good bonus. And there are some ones out here that I would like to see. Stamina, since you don't get a lot on the light shield, the round shield. And when you block, gain a stack of 20% fortify. Now, look, if you decide to take the fortify one over the healing, I don't know, that's a debatable one, especially since fortify doesn't do as much on the light armor as much as it used to. Whatever, have a little play around, but in general, this is the build that I like to follow. And then the second weapon I'm going to be showing you is the Warhammer. Now, this is a build I believe I got from Sherlock Gnome. Shout out there to the M11 guys and Sherlock. Been running this now for maybe 3 or 4 months. I completely forgot about it, to be honest. I'm not going to explain this part of the build too much because you don't have to. Basically, but you do want these 3 skills, and it's the only thing I'm going to explain is these 3 skills. Wrecking Ball, you're going to open with Wrecking Ball quite a lot. Again, these 3 skills you will only use the Warhammer at any stage just to knock down the mobs, especially got big clumps of mobs. You're going to knock down those mobs to stop them from attacking you and the group, whilst the group can just continuously DPS. You can also soak up some heals as well without taking any damage. I like to open up with Wrecking Ball. I think it's really, really important, and then that gives you some Fortify to start off with. I then tend to go into a Shockwave, and I always run the Shockwave perk on my Warhammer, because then you're applying the Rend as well to all the mobs that you hit, which means all the other DPS players are doing a lot more damage. Well, 14%, but it's more damage. And then I tend to end on Clear Out. Again, it gives you that last knockdown of all the mobs that are in that little area, and applies Fortify to your teammates who are really close by. If you're playing all melees, which you probably are, this is like again, we all know melees are playing light right now in PvE mutations, and I know Fortify isn't as valuable anymore, so please comment section down below, don't put Fortify is useful, a useless story. It is a little bit useless, but at the same time, if you can stack a high amount of Fortify, it's going to help in some situations. So I think this is really important. Again, you're only going to be rocking where's my Warhammer? You're only going to be rocking, if I just show you like a quick mini demo before we go into some dungeon play. Basically, there'll be a bunch of mobs here, and you'll start off and you'll go in straight in with Wrecking Ball, Shockwave, knock them all down, and then what I tend to do is roll back and then go back in with the Leaping Strike, and then off you go. Big heavy attack to get all your own power, and then off you go. And then depending on what's going on, whether you shield rush or whether you Defender's Resolve. So it's that kind of a rotation. So with the Warhammer, that's why I play those skills. Armor Breaker is potentially useful because, again, added Rend and stuff like that, but depends on what kind of a team mock-up you've got. Now, if I show you my gear, again, the sword, I think it's a really good sword. I managed to get this off the TP maybe about 6 weeks ago, give or take, for I think around 30 or 40k when we were live streaming on Twitch. So I was really lucky to get this one. I go with Punish and Taunt. Again, I'm just trying to get that extra bit of damage. Again, so you are 66 con and not 5 con like a lot of light DPS players. But at the same time, you're taking all the aggro, so you need some con, of course, or you'll just be the one tap when you got all the aggro. So I try and do as much damage as I possibly can. I try and mitigate the using the 66 con by just adding more damage where I can. I know it's 2%, but 2% is 2%. Now, don't forget, when you come to your round shield, again, this is not the perfect round shield, but this is the one I got so far. These are really hard to farm. You can stack Bane. Do not forget this. I've explained this in previous videos. You can stack Bane from your shield on top of your sword, but you can't stack things like Rogue or Enchanted. So you'll never see me with an Enchanted on the sword and Enchanted on the shield, okay? So yeah, come back to the sword. Refreshing move. Obviously, we're going to be smashing out our sword and shield, and that's how we're going to get our regeneration, why we don't need reverse stab. Now, over to the Warhammer, the things you always want. I mean, the one perk you absolutely definitely want is Sundering Shockwave, because you want to apply that Rend like we spoke about before. The other perks, I'll be honest, sure, it always used to be Bane, but now that the CC skills that you use don't cause that much damage anyway, is 15% more damage of a lot less damage even worth it? Whatever. It's the one I've got now. Again, the same with the Punish and Taunt, 2% more damage. And Shuriken Flames is just a bonus third perk that we had on the weapon. This does proc quite a lot, so a little bit of bonus damage in there when you are chucking in the CCs. But again, we're not going to focus on the DPS too much of the Warhammer. We're just going pure CCs with that. I tend to go Grasping Vines always, because again, you're going to have all of the mobs piled on top of you. And so many times you'll see on the Mage fight when we get the Rend and Vines, which inflicts Rend, which means you do more damage, and then the Enfeebling part, you weaken them all so they do less damage. It's like a double whammy. You can run Detonate, you can run it, and that is very useful in a lot of occasions, but I'm thinking more of a, you are a light tank, okay? You're 66 con, Your light armor across the board, you can be tapped left, right, and center. You got to be careful here. So adding that extra bit of enfeebling, so then those mobs do less damage to you, I think is the overall better, sort of better, you know, overall choice. Right, so going back to the shield, like I said, now these are hard to farm. In my personal opinion, what I would like would be Angry Earth Bane, Angry Earth Ward, so you get 6 pieces of ward. This is also vital when you're in such light armor. But then Fortifying Shield Rush. If I could get that that combination, which should be able to drop in Genesis, it's really, really hard and whatever. That is what I would aim for, so don't mock me for the Accelerated Resolve, which is garbage, right? Again, so the rest of it, you basically want to try and stock as much Refreshing as you possibly can. Obviously, Ward, and then some of the weapon perks. So we've got Leap and Strike in here. Again, if we got third perkers, these will be perfect. But again, until these drop, or until we get lucky with the Gambas, this is what we're playing with, and we've hit many M10 golds. Stirred the Energy, I think, is really useful when blocking a hit while below 30% stamina. Gain 39% stamina regeneration for 6 seconds. I think this is huge. We've got the Refreshing on there again, which is nice. A little bit of freedom in there. Angry Earth Ward. I only try and rock maybe 1 Blight Resistance or 2 at most, just so then you don't have to use Blight Pots, you know, get caught in that sticky situation towards the end of Genesis where you're in the pools fighting quite a lot, and then you get a blighted, and then the heals don't work, and you die. I wouldn't focus too much on Blight Resistance, but 1 or 2 pieces is fine. Here's our Fortifying Shield Rush. Again, it's only 19%, and not, I think it's 33%, which it should be on the shield. But again, when we get that shield, that's what we'll swap these out for. And Ward across the board, and some Refreshing Evasion. Again, not great pieces, but this shows you, even without BIS pieces, that this is absolutely easily doable. Again, I'll go over to the earring. Refreshing Toast, Regeneration, easy. Doom's Chant, it's been there for years in the game. It's a go-to. Maybe I never need hated in here. Anybody in the comment section go, bro, you've not got hated. I don't need it. If you're a little bit worried about not quite doing a big damage output, you can rock a hated in there, and that's absolutely fine. And then obviously Legate Ring. I farmed this like crap on my stream a couple of months ago, and it was really hard to get. You want the Leeching, because again, you want to be giving yourself mini heals. Slash damage, of course. And the reason why you won't go for like a Simon's Ring, if you're thinking, bro, you've got no hearty. Oh my god. You've got no hearty. If we go over to the attributes here, once you go, I think it's to 200 dex, is it? No, which one is it again? Let me just remind myself. Oh, sorry, 150 dex. I'm an idiot. It's right in front of me. Dodges cost 10 less stamina. That essentially means, if you look at my stamina at the bottom of the screen, I am an idiot because I didn't assign the points. No, there you go. So dodges cost, I'm such an idiot. 60. There you go. You get your 3 dodges, okay? So you don't need to run hearty on the ring. You see, I'll just show you one more time. 3 dodges, there you go, and then you're exhausted. I was looking at that thinking, what have I just done wrong? I didn't apply the attribute points, obviously, in the build. So yeah, once you rock over 150 dex, you don't need hearty, which means you can replace that perk out there for something else, which then allows you to deal more damage. When it comes to your amulet, you just basically want health. You want the protection of whatever the dungeon is. So void, if it's nature, whatever. And then again, if you can get something else on there as a third perk bonus, you know, fortifying recovery, whatever you want. Empower as well. You can also rock the merc guards as well if you can get those. That is everything that we're equipping right now. You've seen the build, you've seen the gear. In terms of pots, I tend to run both depending on what part of the fight we're in. Like the mage part, and if it's going to do the big slam attack with the mage, sort of like, you know, I don't know what you call it, the mage magic ability or whatever, I'll pop some gemstone dust, like a higher tier. And then if it's the normal big mobs, I'll pop the Angry Earth Ward as well. Only one of those you can use at a time. So, you know, if it's the big brutes, I'll pop this. If it's the mage boss, I'll pop this. And that tends to give me like a really, really good balance. So you've seen absolutely everything here. Obviously, when it comes to protection, in terms of like the gems on your armor, that all changes per each dungeon. There are some dungeons like Fire where I'll only rock 5 pieces of like ruby gems, for example. In this or last week's Genesis that we went past, the Void was doing so much damage because there's so many ticks everywhere. I found like I went absolutely full Void as much as I possibly could, and then we lived. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clip over to one of the runs we did. M10 gold. I don't know if I managed to record the run where we finished 3rd in the leaderboard or 2nd. I recorded a couple here and there, but there's loads on the live stream. So I'm just going to talk you through bits and bobs, main aims, where to dodge roll, you know, when to sort of shield up, all that kind of stuff. So let's get into the actual fight. So here we go. One of the clips we got, I think this was like an 80,000 point run. So it was an M10 gold. It wasn't anything dramatic. I think this maybe only got us like 10 10th or 11th on the leaderboard. I don't think I recorded one where we finished second, but I promise you we did at one point. We finished second. Now, this is big. This is big. Sorry, let me pause here. Let me go back just slightly. Okay, the reason why this is really, really big, this is basically how this is how you need to approach this fight here. Now, this doesn't always work, but for the most part, it will. If you approach the archer from this angle here, whenever he does the dodge roll back, he'll go back in that angle and not towards the soldier. Again, it'll work maybe like 75% of the time. If you ever want to avoid fighting this main soldier behind us, you kind of, there you go, perfect example. You point the archer in this direction and he'll jolt backwards, and then you won't pull the soldier. It's really, really important. Now, as you can tell here, if you just sort of look at, I think the next part of the fight will be a little bit better. Some examples. So look at some of the rotations that we use. I tend to use the CCs on the mobs. If I know that that mob is not going to do any heavy attacks on me, I think at one point I might go down here as well, so this will be a good example of what not to do. So we go in with the leaping strike, we go in with the shield rush like we explained earlier on. Now we want to start getting some of our like, this could be the one where I go down, possibly. Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. Now the reason why I go down here, I love showing stuff like this on the stream. The reason why I go down here is I didn't predict that this big brute boss, they went down again, this big brute boss was going to do all his attacks in one. It's a little bit random, you know, RNG sometimes, so you just got to sort of be aware. Probably the best thing I should have done there is leaping strike, shield rush, dodge roll out a little bit, so I had a bit of space between me and the Taxodius here, and then that way if he was going to do a few heavy attacks, I could dodge roll one more time and he'd be nowhere near me. But as you can tell, one thing we need to do is every time we know he's going to do a big heavy attack, if we are full stamina, we can block that, okay? A lot of these big hits we can block, get the empower, and then do more damage. If we're not full stamina, that's when we probably want to do a dodge roll. And you can see some of our timings here are pretty good. Again, this is not like a pre-made 5. For example, me and Tom, for example, from the same guild, and then everybody else we kind of like got from Group Finder that night. Played with Jora before. Uzun, this was like the second time I think we played with him, and then Token Boy maybe the second time. But yeah, I'm not going to show you all of the entire dungeon here. I just want to show you some key parts. The mage boss next is pretty important. This archer boss, I try and face him down that tunnel, because if he does his leap back, we want him going that direction as well. I'm hopefully going to show you some good CC moments with the, here we go. Now, with the mage boss and with all the big mini bosses, this is why I like to use Warhammer as the secondary. It's so important to get the CCs down. Also the grasping vines, if you watch now, we're going to let these mobs come in. Boom, CC. Boom, CC. Grasping vines in there. Boom, another CC. And look, at all that moment, we had like, what, 15 mobs on us maybe? At all that moment, in those 15 mobs, they barely had a single second to actually hit me or the DPS. Oh, obviously the healer unfortunately got away there. Because you're CCing them. That's why I think the Warhammer is so important. And I'll show you this next little bit, and then maybe we'll jump into like the Garden Keeper fight so you can see that. The soldiers are really big as well. The only thing you want to look out for on the soldiers, you want to make sure that they've either been Skyward tapped, if you know what that is, or Nullifying Oblivion from, there we go, Nullifying Oblivion. So this now will do less damage to us. In general, we should be able to kill it faster as well, because it won't have the Fortify buff, which is just popped up. When they do the big heavy attack, that's when you block. It's a big fundamental of this build. If you have full stamina, you can block pretty much everything. What is in one big hit. If you don't have full stamina, you want to dodge roll away and then come back. And every time there's multiple big groups of mobs, that's when you want to come out with the CCs. Right, and then here, coming into the Garden Keeper boss, I want to show you this bit as well. Sorry, Caretaker. You'll see so many people say, don't play Genesis. Don't play Genesis. It's broken. M10s, it's broken. You know, it's RNG. The gates come up and down and you can't kill it. No. Basically, what I found now, and we're speaking with a lot of people in the Twitch chat, we've pretty much found, not data mine, but we pretty much find when you start this fight, when the first gate comes up, there's a 45-second window, which means you have 45 seconds. This is what we believe now, strongly believe. Comment section down below if you think differently. You got 45 seconds from the moment he brings up the first gate to kill the boss. If you waste that 45 seconds at this point now, 45 seconds, if somebody wants to get a clock on the board, if you don't kill this boss within that 45 seconds, that's when the gate comes down and it'll come straight back down again, and then all the mobs come in, if that makes sense. So long as your group's DPS is good enough, that you can see here, our DPS is pretty decent. Nobody's sort of dying, we're all okay. The healer's not even doing a massive amount of Void Blade damage, you know, coming in with like 200 int builds, for example, which is what I like to play. And we still managed to get it down. You just need good DPS plays, and this proves as well that this that this build in general, oh, sorry for the follower, that this build in general is really good DPS compared to, say, heavy tanking. If you tried this heavy tanking, you'd probably run out of time. As you can see here, we're going to take down this boss just in time, and before the gate just comes out. See, there you go. It's not bugged. Okay, I just want to pause this here. It is not, in fact, no, we don't leave it playing. It is not bugged. It's a time gate. From the moment that gate first comes up, you've got 45 seconds. If your team cannot kill that boss within 45 seconds, yes, the gate will come down, all the mobs will come in, and unless the healer's clever enough to sort of pull those mobs out, you're probably gonna wipe. So just bear that in mind. That's how that works. And then the only thing I kind of change in this build as we go into the final fight, all my attributes pretty much stay the same, but I switch out to my hatchet just to do an additional, a little bit of damage towards the end of the fight. So obviously once you can use the Defy Death perk, you know, you guys understand when you see it now. I always tank jumping on the opposite side. Now, one thing you got to be careful with, this is a disclaimer, okay? When you are 66 con with no Defender's Resolve, no Fortifying Shield Rush, when the Scream attack comes out, that can one-tap you. So you always want to block the Scream attack. See this one here? That will one-tap you at 66 con. Unless you have got max heals on you and Defender's Resolve. It'll KO you. All these big hits here, you can always take 2 to 3 big hits when you've got no heals on you. That's another thing to be aware of. But what you want to essentially be doing is I switch to the hatchet there if you watch quickly enough, and just to chuck in a rending throw, just to speed up the DPS on the boss as much as we possibly can. And then always coming back to the sword and shield here and doing as much damage as we can. And there's quite a lot of blocking, so you got to be careful. Again, Scream, it'll one-shot us, but we want to be doing a big heavy attack to get our 35% in power, and then a lot of dodging around here. Leaping Strike comes in clutch. And again, now you could stick to Warhammer here, and every now and again, instead of switching to a rend and throw, you would you gotta know when your fight's done here, boys. You gotta jolt away, you know. You can obviously chuck in the Sundering Shockwave, but I think having the hatchet as a secondary is much better for the 2 reasons. You can quickly chuck rend and throws almost all the time. A lot of this fight I didn't have heal, so I had to be really careful. I didn't want to go down and sort of ruin our time. We've got a decent time here. It's not like a world record speedrunner's time. In fact, it's probably double the time. But in terms of like maximum score time, this is pretty decent. You know what I mean? It's maybe a minute or minute and a half quicker, and we'd have been top of the leaderboard. I just want to show you the part of the hatchet again, why it's obviously important. When the boss comes back up and you got this big whirly attack, we all know about this already. You get Defy Death as long as you've not triggered it once already, and you can just continue DPS. We're not doing the world's biggest DPS, 3Ks, 4Ks, 2.5Ks. But we are constantly chucking in damage, and then obviously, I think that's more than the Warhammer. That's why I switched to the hatchet only for that final boss fight. My hatchet is just simply Angry Earth Bane, and I think it's Flame Attunement. A couple of sticky moments here as well. Now, another suggestion, by the way, I changed to the Strike Protection Amulet. With the Strike Protection, I think it's Jasper gem in there, because this boss does a lot of strike damage, as you can see down the bottom right. It's all strike damage when he's hitting you. However, if you think you're fine with the strike damages, you can do nature resistant with an amber gem in there as well in your amulet, because in that way all those sort of poison puddles on the floor, they do nature damage, so you can negate a bit of that if you like. So it was pausing. Like I said, not the world's greatest run. I didn't record all of them, sadly, but there you go. So if we just pause it there so you can see it. No deaths from the team, no double deaths. We killed everything we needed to. Bang on with the mobs. 16:29. Honestly, guys, if we'd have finished this 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds quicker, we'd have been in there. We'd have been top of the leaderboard. You know, we played a couple of randoms here and there. We don't quite gel all the time or whatever, or mini mistakes. I went down early on. You can blame me there. You know, I went down early on in the start of that fight. That slowed us down a little bit. But yeah, so there it is. I didn't want to waffle on too long. The video will stretch a little bit here, so I do apologize. But hopefully you can just sort of listen to it in almost like a podcast style and watch along and chill. What I honestly would like to see now, when I next play Genesis on the Barry server, next play NewWorld on the Barry server, and it's Genesis, which will be in like 3 or 4 weeks now because the rotations, it's so annoying. I would love to see Group Finder full of light tanks. You do see them. You absolutely do see them. There's a couple out there on the Barry server, or when I played, there's a couple out there. There's just not many. And the amount of times if I switch over to my healer, for example, if I fancy chilling on some DPS, even though that kind of is DPS, it's just full of heavy tanks. You know, 300 con heavy tanks. Oh no. Because the problem with those builds are, it just makes the dungeon last way too long, and it's unnecessary. The whole point of this video is a bit of a guide on how to play the light tank. Hopefully there's enough information here where you found it useful. Guys, if you did, subscribe, check me out on Twitch, comment section down below for any feedback or anything you would change, or what you compare the DPS compared to, say, a Hatchet Warhammer or a Greatsword Warhammer. You know, let me know if you play that and what you think. But guys, again, subscribe to the channel if you like these videos. If you want any more kind of guide videos, any kind of tanking on any other dungeons, healing I now do as well, or DPS, comment section down below, and we get those videos out as quick as we can.